The name's Miles, Daniel Miles, and this is a retro dunking of Goldfinger. And there's an urban myth that I want to crush right now about this film. Nobody has died from being covered in gold paint. It's physically impossible. If you died every time your skin was submerged in water, swimming, scuba diving, having a bath would be fatal. It's never happened. We put this myth to bed, please. This is it, folks. Genesis. This is the Bond film that set the template that the series would follow all the way up until Die Another Day. Literally, you break down the steps in this story and they are carbon copied for the next 40 years. And what a story to carbon copy. This is the film with the Aston Martin DB5. This is the film with Goldfinger, Pussy Galore. The first Bond film that departed from realism and went more into the fantasy, more into what we think being a super spy would be like. This is the film with gadgets. This is the film where Bond is about as useful as a sack of potatoes. Let's break it down. James Bond is sent after Auric Goldfinger, who the Bank of England believes is about to steal a lot of gold from the British economy. He instead discovers that Goldfinger is on the verge of blowing up Fort Knox, rendering the United States economy worthless. Now, Gert Frobe, who played Goldfinger, couldn't actually speak English while this film was being made. This is his first English language film, and he's in fact incredibly dubbed. And to be honest, you wouldn't notice if I hadn't told you. This film also introduces the sidekick that would become known through the Bond films. In this one, it's Oddjob, with his bowler hat of doom. Unfortunately, James Bond in this film, he's captured in, I think, about the first 35 minutes and spends the rest of the film as a hostage. Now, Auric Goldfinger is not a member of Spectre. He's the first villain in the film series not to be associated with Blofeld's Enterprise, and to be honest, you don't notice. Now, this was the first Bond film to win an Oscar for Best Effects, Special Effects at the Academy Awards, and to be honest, I think it deserved it. Now, I'm going to say one thing about that laser scene where Bond is strapped to the table. Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. There was a guy underneath that table with a blowtorch heading towards Connery's groin with no mark telling him where to stop. Now watch that scene again, guys, and tell me what you think. Honor Blackman plays Pussy Galore, who in the novel is definitely a lesbian. In this one it's mostly hinted at. However, she is converted to the side of good after a role in The Hague with James Bond, and actually does more to help the plot than he does. Now, the Americans wanted her to be called Kitty Galore, feeling that Pussy Galore was more explicit, so the producers rolled out Prince Charles, who was perfectly happy to say the name and got the Americans to back down. Now, whilst I do feel this film does set the tone for a lot of the series with gadgets and escapades and girls and risque names, I personally did not enjoy watching this film as much as I thought I would when I was rewatching it for this review. So I still love this film, and it is still the baseline, and a lot of people regard it as their favourite Bond film, but for me, whilst it's still really, really good, James Bond isn't very active in this. The plot requires quite a few contrivances. There's a couple of scenes added in solely for the audience. There's a couple of scenes where people explain what they're doing for no reason than to tell us what's going on. And that always winds me up the wrong way in films. If you can't have it naturally occur with people telling each other what the plot is and you have to exposition dump, then you should really go back and rework your dialogue. This film is still see it, and I imagine most of the people watching this video have, but for me, it's not quite up there with the first two. I'm Daniel, this was a Donkey. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. I keep saying Blofeld was filming this, it's Goldfinger.